So I wanted to thank everybody for that. And let's get on to the presentation a little bit. I'm in the process of what I hope is going to be a long-term project to explore the Mississippi from the headwaters all the way to the Gulf. For a purely random reason, I started kind of in the middle around the Quad Cities, and I've been working my way north from there. So the 3 books that in print only cover the river from the Quad Cities to Hastings, and this is my year to kind of close in the northern section of the river from the headwaters down to the cities. So what I want to do tonight is I want to tell you, since I've traveled so much, I thought it might be more interesting rather than going through guidebook kinds of discussions, just to tell you a little bit about the kinds of experiences that I try to seek out as a traveler to get to know new places. I am, there we go, first slide. I'm really interested in what defines places, what makes one place a little different from the next. And I like to start off by saying these kinds of places don't interest me at all. If you can tell me what city that is, then I'll give you a free book. You can have a Driftless Area book. Anybody have a guess as to where that is? Well, that's really the essential problem. There's nothing in there that's specific about any particular place. It doesn't tell you anything about where you are, although it might tell you something about what you're expected to do. And there are hundreds of places like this all over our country, and they depress me for the most part. I'm more interested in uniqueness and something that speaks to the local culture a lot more. So I want to start off by telling you a quick little story about to give you a flavor of the kinds of experiences I seek out on the road. I want to tell you about a day that I spent out of the country in the city of Dubrovnik, Croatia, a few years ago. Dubrovnik is on the Adriatic Sea, just across from Italy. It was ruled by Venice for a number of years, so there are a lot of cultural influences from Venice and Italy generally. I got into town by bus, and as soon as you get off the bus, you're swarmed by a group of locals, mostly women, who are renting rooms in their houses. It's a way they supplement their incomes. It's a little difficult to make a decision about who to go with and when you're swarmed and you've got lots of people trying to get your attention. But ended up picking a place to stay that was supposed to be fairly close to the old town. Ended up being about a 30-minute walk, but that wasn't so bad really. But for $15 a night, I really wasn't going to complain. You know, that's pretty much as cheap as you're ever going to get for a room if you're not camping or staying in a hostel somewhere. So in the morning, we'd begin the day by walking a couple blocks to the local bakery. We'd buy some fresh pastries and some orange juice, and that would be our breakfast on the way toward the old town. And then once we get to the old town itself, I'd splurge on a $1 cappuccino and look over the guidebook and see what was going on that day and kind of figure out a general idea of what we might like to get done that day. On this particular day, just so happened next door there was a concert being performed in a 400-year-old monastery. So we zipped over there. It was a free concert that day. It's not always free, but it was nice to have a chance to hear a little bit of classical music in a classical setting. After that, we went for a stroll around the city walls. Dubrovnik is surrounded by medieval walls, remarkably intact 400 to 500-year-old walls that are about 20 feet tall and 10 to 15 feet wide, surround the entire city, and they make for a really nice walk. And you get views like this, looking out over the city toward the Adriatic Sea. After almost exhausting ourselves for that walk, we stopped for lunch and had pizza. And pizza, because of the influence from Italian culture, is actually food that is native to Croatia. It's not something that just showed up in the past 20 years to feed backpackers, but it's been there a long time. And then in the afternoon, hit a couple of local art museums, and went back to the square, had another cappuccino, and kind of people watched for a while. The square was a busy place with lots of people making loops and doing their socializing. And at one point, we recognized a couple of people from our bus trip. So the second time they passed us by, we waved them over and invited them to join us for coffee. And we had a chance to talk with them for about an hour and learn a little bit more about Croatia and Dubrovnik from that. One spoke English, one didn't, so one kind of got to translate for the other, and it was a nice conversation. In the evening, dinner was a seafood restaurant. It's on the Adriatic, so fresh seafood is pretty easy to find. And at this particular restaurant, the owner's father made his own plum brandy and was all too happy to share it with the customers. He would go from table to table offering free shots of his homemade plum brandy. After that, we went to see a movie, Spider-Man, with Croatian subtitles. So it was kind of a fun way to pick up a few words of Croatian. And then we finished the evening at a local pub. Guinness, I know, is not indigenous to Croatia, but this particular place was just really friendly. We got to know a few people there, and one of the things I like to do when I'm traveling around, if I'm going to be in a place more than a day or two, is to find a restaurant or a pub that I can go to more than once. And if you show up more than once, you tend to get to know people a little bit. You become a regular pretty quickly in a lot of these places. So that was kind of the end of that day. Then we had to take a taxi back, but it was a cheap taxi back to where we were staying.